18 years ago, Monty Ohm uploaded the fan animation Haloid. 3 years later, this animation would inspire the very first episode of Death Battle. 3 years after that, Monty Ohm's original series Ruby would be released. 12 years later, all of these factors would build into one of the greatest Death Battle episodes ever made. Ruby vs. Maka is something special. While not my personal favorite, this is right next to Goku vs. Superman 3 for one of the least flawed episodes the team has ever put out. And because of that, criticizing it is really damn hard. As usual, let's start with the analyses. Now, I know I say this like every review, but this time it's sticking. This is by far, without a shred of doubt in my mind, the best editing we've ever gotten on the show, and I don't think it'll be topped anytime soon. Ruby's analysis has great text integration, super smooth multi-screen edits, and perfectly fitting aesthetics for the fairy tale sections. More interestingly though, I love the edits where DJ highlights an item in red while dimming the background to monochromatic. It really pops and gives an almost blueprint feel to the visual. Maka's analysis, however, is on another level. The manga motion graphics here are beautiful, with the black blood dress, Soul's piano, Black Star shadow feet, and especially the Soul wavelength edits being the best of the analysis. Her analysis similarly features great text integration like Ruby's, but it also has the added bonus of having amazing cutout edits. The cutouts are my favorite part of the motion graphics because they're a style of editing I absolutely adore. Using a short cutout clip to fade into the following video gives such a beautifully smooth transition, with the weapon section being especially clean. I also really like the custom backgrounds done for the text tab. They look really nice. More importantly than the editing though is the writing, which DJ also knocks out of the park. Be ready to hear that a lot this video. Both analyses here excel at character writing and give such a great idea of the personality and themes to both characters. Ruby's analysis does a great job at conveying her nerdy personality and obsession with all things weapons and hunting, while slowly building up her story of overwhelming pressure and how it cracks down on her bubbly personality. Maka, meanwhile, focuses less on story beats, but in return gets some of the best characterization we've ever gotten in an analysis. You come out of this one perfectly understanding what her totally platonic relationship with Soul is like, how they contrast, what makes them such a lovable duo, their insecurities, and the many walls their bond smashes right through. It's what makes the ending about their unbreakable bond work so well, because the entire analysis up to that point has been building on just how tight their relationship became. Ruby's conclusion, however, the exact opposite of that. Ruby's ending is one of the most non-endings we've ever gotten in an analysis. It just ends the character arc they've been building up the entire analysis with, she got over it. There's no detail or explanation. The culmination of her character arc on self-acceptance is dumbed down to a single sentence. A sentence which, might I add, is just not what fucking happened. It's almost impressive how this single line immediately turns what would be an easy 9 out of 10 analysis to like a 7 because it just couldn't be asked to write a conclusion. But again, the rest of her coverage is really good, and part of what ties this character analysis together so well is how smoothly it's weaved in with the versus coverage. The transitions here are great. Maka's obviously works well as it just follows the order she gets the powers in series, but Ruby's jumps around a lot and still flows super smoothly. One example I really like is how they use Ruby always moving forward to transition to pedal burst, which, moves her forward really fast. On a final note, I was pleasantly surprised by how funny these analyses were. There's a lot of jokes here that got some great laughs out of me. Maka and Soul failing instantly, and Boomstick putting Nora as best girl are my personal favorites. Plus, while more of a post-analysis thing, Boomstick's reaction to his full name being Soul Evans is hilarious. Oh, also, I love the soundtrack references in Ruby's analysis. Those are really fun. As for the animation, I have almost nothing but praise. So let's start with the thing that made me the happiest out of anything in it, the track. Fun little fact about me, Ruby has my favorite soundtrack out of any media. It frankly blows everything else out of the water and has exclusively non-stop bangers. So you bet your ass that when Casey was announced to be on this track, I was ascending. But did the track live up to that hype? Who am I kidding? Of course it did. Casey is obviously the star of the show here, but don't let that take away from the others' contributions. Brandon delivers a stellar backing instrumental with the drums and piano sounding best to me, especially the latter with its implementation in the fight. As for Maria, hope I'm saying that right, her vocals don't get nearly as much spotlight, but boy does she make up for it during the rooftop section. Her singing along with the piano gives that part such an elegant feel, and I love it. And obviously Casey is, well, Casey, so it'd be really hard for her to not kill this performance. Her vocals are absolutely phenomenal, culminating in her insanely good high notes for the ending. And in classic Ruby fashion, the best part of the track isn't even in the episode. Please go listen to the full track. Casey's final deliveries are so good, man. Speaking of said final line, prepare for this to be the only time I ever compliment a Death Battle track's lyrics. I adore the lyrics here. On their own, it's whatever, standard DB stuff, but with the underlying theme of Monty's influence taken into account, they're just beautiful. The promise we we made, your gentle light still shining down on me, I wish you could see me now. These are such beautiful lyrics, and by far the best tribute the episode does to him. Insanely huge props to Brandon in that regard. On the topic of another beautiful thing, let's give some glaze to the phenomenal animation. First things first, let's immediately get the more iffy looking shots out of the way. I think the final portion of the piano section looks pretty bad with how disjointed the characters' movements are, especially in comparison to the fluidity most of the fight excels in, and that concludes the issues with the animation. This singular shot is the only one I really have any complaints with, and given it's since been confirmed by Luis that he is responsible for all the bad looking shots in the episode, let us all honor his brave sacrifice in trying his best to keep the episode a 6 out of 10. Jokes aside, all three animators did a phenomenal job. Unlike Hulk vs. Godzilla, I can't pinpoint which animators did which sections beyond knowing Luis did the majority of it and DA did the middle section. But not like it matters much since, again, every part looks amazing, most notably in the lighting. The switch to Unreal Engine 5 is really obvious in terms of lighting. Everything looks so pretty and vibrant. In stark contrast to the previous episode, this fight is bathed in warm colors throughout, most noticeably with the orange highlights present on the characters the whole time. Except when it doesn't feel like it. But hey, who cares about inconsistent lighting when the range section is giving us so many beautiful colors at once? DA really just threw everything at the wall and luckily all of it stuck. All the different dust bowls look great against the dark backdrop and the occasional lowered frame rate works really well unlike a certain beaten horse. The pedal tornado is another instance of beautiful lighting, with Maka's overpowering blue aura clashing perfectly against the vibrant reds all around. Finally, due to the fight's super vivid coloring, that also makes the Silver Eye scene so much more impactful because the shift in monochromatic contrast so hard with everything else done in it. There's plenty beyond the coloring to praise as well. The camera work is super fluid with the continuous shot at the start, the reference to the Red trailer, and the rooftop bullet sequence all being really good examples. The facial expressions look so bubbly and cute whenever we get a close-up, just ignore when they aren't animated. Soul's inner world shares the great lighting the rest of the fight has, and the detail of the piano playing being accurate is sick. Additionally, Luis taking a page out of Moro's book and doing a custom rig for Soul's head worked amazingly. Speaking of custom models, Black Blood Maka looks stunning. Death Battle is now 2 for 2 in doing previously unanimated forms justice this season, and I'd say Maka's looks better overall, thanks in part to just being such a cool looking design. I really like the reveal shot for the transformation. Maka has good posing and the smears done for the side spin look beautiful. I would love to see how those were done. Overall, while I think Spider-Man vs. Deku just barely edges out, I'd say this is probably the second best looking 3D fight we've ever gotten. All of the aspects come together to make such a beautiful piece of art that took my breath away from just the previews alone. Ronald vs. Ender still looks better though. This insane quality of animation doesn't just help in looking pretty, but also massively enhances the choreography. Normally my coverage of choreography is on a far more general overview, but here I can really geek out about how much each action flows into the next, so I'll be doing that with the opening sequence. We start with a sliding shot that admittedly looks really weird. Ruby hits Maka's scythe upwards and uses the arc of that to lead into the sniper shot launching her forward. Maka goes for a counter, but as Ruby goes by, she positions her scythe to shoot her upwards, dodging Maka's swing and positioning herself for a downward strike. Maka swings her scythe around behind her and deflects it. Now both combatants are spinning their scythes, building up momentum, with Maka's scythe handling looking especially great. Ruby wins the clash and disarms Maka. She immediately presses the advantage, but Maka is able to regain footing in time to block her swing. Ruby in response shoots herself behind Maka, using her jumping to force her into a vulnerable spot, but Maka is able to read this and blocks the strike while her back is turned. She swings back at Ruby, who dodges and throws crescent rows at Maka, who blocks it by spinning her scythe. This is where it gets really good. Ruby catches the scythe again and goes for a sweeping blow, but Maka manages to redirect it using the momentum from her previous scythe spin. Ruby, however, uses this to her advantage and continues with the arc from her swing, doing a full 360 rotation to hit Maka again. But Maka does the same, using the arc from her initial redirection of Ruby's scythe to do a full 360 and meet in the same spot where they blocked before. It's so good! I know that was a lot of yapping, but I really wanted to convey just how well each action flows into the next. You can follow the momentum in every swing and how it leads into the character's next attack or positioning. It's all so well choreographed, benefited especially by the fact that this is done in one continuous shot, and even more crazy is that all of this tight writing happens in only 11 seconds. One of the best choreographed and shot sequences in all of Death Battle. It's sad to say, but the fight peaks insanely hard here. But while that section is undoubtedly the best choreographed part, don't let that make you think the rest of the fight is lacking in any regard. The first half of the piano fight has similarly well-flowing choreography. The scene forces the two into into very close proximity, which means they can't use the full length of their size, leading to them having to rely on hand-to-hand and use more vertical approaches like Ruby aiming for Maka's feet or Maka going for jump kicks. I also really like the portion after the opening fight. Ruby using Petal Burst to dodge Maka's attack and hit her from behind is a very simple idea, but I love how it's done in execution. Ruby waits till right as Maka swings to actually activate her semblance, baiting Maka into an unguardable position. This also directly leads into Maka's next move, faking Ruby out with a side swing only to instead use it to trap her into an attack she can't just use Petal Burst to get out of. Aside from the direct fighting, I really like both power interactions we get in the fight, even if there's only two. Soul breaking Ruby's aura with Adagio was a very easy interaction to see coming, but I love how they build up to it with the piano playing, and it perfectly leads into the Silver Eyes given it's literally the only thing Ruby could use at that point. Now, there is a lot of debate on whether the Silver Eyes would actually work on Black Blood. From what I hear, it probably shouldn't, but I would much rather handwave the technicalities if it means we get as cool of a power interaction as this. Maka and Soul's wavelengths are able to power through the Silver Eyes, but in the words of my goat Sarge, Ruby was able to knock the black right off her and turn the dress into pure white. While it's an interaction that doesn't really accomplish much in the end, it is still a really good way to implement the power, and it's so sick from a visual perspective. Branching off from choreography is where we get the fight's main issue though, that being how much Ruby gets shafted. A friend of mine pointed it out, but it's pretty ironic that for an episode that's practically dedicated to Ruby this series, Ruby the character draws the short end of the stick at every point from analysis to animation. Throughout the whole fight, while Ruby certainly keeps up, there's no point where I can really say she's the focus. The Rose Tornado scene exists for Maka to have a cool moment. The bullet section is heavily focused on Maka. The entire climax has Maka in the spotlight with Soul's piano playing, and the small moments Ruby does get, like her scythe hit and the anti-gravity bullet, are immediately overshadowed by Maka whooping her like storyboard Megatron in the Black Blood dress. The most impactful moment she has in the fight is the Silver Eyes, but that happens 3 seconds before she dies, so yeah. To be clear, this isn't to say Maka stomped her in the animation or anything. The two are actually on extremely even footing for the majority of the fight. It's just the lack of notable moments that drags it down. I could name multiple great Maka moments in this fight, whereas aside from the Silver Eyes, I couldn't really name a great Ruby moment. I think a good fix to this could have been to change the attack she did before Maka went Black Blood to something more impactful. Might be too ambitious, but I think having Ruby draw blood with a hit and having that lead to the reveal of the Black Blood similar to how it was done with Chrono would have been really sick. But as is, I unfortunately leave this fight without much to take away from Ruby's side, which is a real shame as she's the character I vastly prefer between the two. Maka, however, she's done amazingly, and yet even with how well she's done, she is also not the best character here. Enter Soul motherfucking Evans. I've saved the best for last because he is by far the best in terms of characterization. He is adapted perfectly. Relax. Before he starts playing Peppermint on the piano is by far the coolest thing in the whole animation. Soul just constantly exudes aura in this, while also getting opportunities to show off his goofier side around Maka. A big part of what makes Soul so good in this is his VA. I need you all to understand how insane this is. We have a character's official voice actor for this episode, and they do not have the best performance. That's not to say Lindsay does bad. It's hard for her to mess up a character she's been playing for years, but I think her final line delivery feels very limp, which is just enough for John Van Dorn and his phenomenal performance as Soul to edge out. Ginger also does great as Maka for the record, it's just that she's sandwiched between two titans. But yeah, Soul is awesome here, and I'm glad he felt like such a big part of the fight given how important he is to Maka. With that, we move over to the post-analysis, which, yeah, not much to say here. Contrary to what many people believe, this is nowhere near the biggest stomp of the season. Like, it's not even close, it barely makes the top half, but it is still a very clear-cut verdict. Despite this, it is still a good verdict, and I think it handles the presentation very well, especially with the speed and power categories. But forget all that, this verdict is immediately overshadowed because holy shit, Yzma Hawk is back. Blade vs. Buffy has been a very long time coming, similar to this review, which I slacked on so hard that episode is now out, and I can confirm that it was in fact peak. Anyways, overall, Ruby vs. Maka is just an incredible episode. The main flaw here is obviously how Ruby is handled. In both fight and especially analysis, I feel she doesn't get the same effort Maka does, which is especially a shame in an episode like this that really should be highlighting her given its legacy. But other than that, I have practically zero issues with this episode besides random nitpicks. Like I said at the start, it is one of the least flawed episodes in the show, and all aspects from the writing to the animation are near perfectly executed. Every second of this episode just exudes passion. You can tell DJ and Luis really wanted this to be their magnum opus, and I definitely say they succeeded. I'll give it a clean 9 out of 10. It's a nearly flawless episode and one that absolutely lived up to the many years we've been waiting for it. Anyways, that'll be all for me. Sorry this one's so late. I swear the next one will be out sooner. And don't vote Saki out on Champion Island.